What's up guys, we're Ian and Anna, and in this video we're going to share the top 20 things to do in New York City. Let's waste no time and jump right into number 1, going on a dinner cruise.
If you're short on time and want to experience a little bit of everything, going on a dinner cruise is the perfect way to see a lot of New York City in a short amount of time. The food on here is actually delicious, there's a live band playing the entire time, and you can go out on the 2 different outdoor decks to take in the views as you sail on the Hudson and East River. During this 3-hour dinner cruise, you will pass by all the most iconic sites like the One World Trade Center, the Brooklyn and Manhattan bridges, and you even get up really close to the Statue of Liberty at night. Anna and I love this cruise so much, we ended up going a second time during Christmas with our moms and grandma, and they absolutely loved it too. If you're visiting during winter or colder months, don't worry because you can go on this cruise year-round. The inside makes you feel like you're in a normal restaurant, and if you could handle a little cold, you can still go out on the outdoor decks to take in the views. I will say, this dinner cruise is expensive, but 1000% worth it if you're celebrating something special like engagements, birthdays, anniversaries, and family trips. If you scan the QR code on the screen, you can actually choose between 3 different cruise options. Of course, the most expensive is the dinner cruise, but if you want something a little bit cheaper, you can choose either the lunch or brunch cruise. Now, let's move on to number 2, exploring Central Park.
Spanning 843 acres, Central Park is a massive oasis right in the middle of Manhattan. This park is so big that it's actually larger than 2 countries, the Vatican City and Monaco. Central Park has also been in more than 500 movies and TV shows, making it the most filmed location on planet Earth, so you're bound to recognize some spots as you're exploring around. The first time we visited was during sunrise one morning, and I couldn't believe how lively the park was with locals running around, biking, and walking their dogs everywhere. In my opinion, the best way to see Central Park is to just stroll around for hours along the endless paths and bridges, but if you want to see a lot in a limited amount of time, it's best to hire a pedicab for an hour, which is around $50 per person. We've done this twice now, and we seriously could not recommend it enough, especially if you bring along a bagel sandwich with you. And if you don't want to get scammed and pay crazy prices, make sure to scan the QR code on the screen right here to do the exact same pedicab tour that we did. Whether you decide to walk or take the pedicab, I want to tell you about some of our favorite spots in the park. First, you have to visit one of my all-time favorite places called the Bethesda Terrace and Fountain. This spot has been in so many movies and TV shows like The Avengers, John Wick, Friends with Benefits, 27 Dresses, Home Alone 2, and of course, Gossip Girl, where Chuck and Blair get married under the tunnel. The highlight of this terrace is when you walk down the stairs and go inside because the ceiling is covered with 15,000 tiles, and if you're lucky, this guy will be singing in there. Next up is the Gap-style bridge, which has the best view of the iconic Plaza Hotel. This is the exact filming location of the last scene in Home Alone 2 where Kevin gives the pigeon lady 2 turtle doves, and then Kevin's dad is reading off the bill at the Plaza Hotel and screams about him. Next spot up is personally my favorite view of all of Manhattan from within Central Park. It's called Cat's Rock, and you get amazing views of Billionaire's Row and the gorgeous woman's ice skating rink. And if you didn't know, Billionaire's Row got that nickname because of all these luxury buildings and apartments which have had record-breaking prices. Our pedicab tour guide pointed out the apartments of some famous people that have lived on Billionaire's Row, including Alex Rodriguez, J-Lo, Sting, the lead singer of The Police, and Michael Dell, who is the founder of Dell Technologies. Another amazing spot to stop at is Cherry Hill Fountain, which has been nicknamed the Friends Fountain. I hate to burst your bubble out there if you didn't know this, the TV show Friends was actually filmed in California at the Warner Brothers studio and not in New York City. But if you want to see a fountain that looks pretty much identical, you definitely want to stop here. And right next to it is a great view of the San Remo, which is an apartment complex where so many celebrities have lived, including Steve Jobs, Tiger Woods, Bruce Willis, and Steven Spielberg. Last but not least, you can actually visit the location where Beatles legend John Lennon was shot in 1980. There's a little memorial there and even this facade on the ground with the word Imagine, which is the best-selling single of John Lennon's career. You really can't go wrong with Central Park, and it is definitely a highlight of everyone's New York City trip. Now up next, we have number 3, Christmas in New York. I really think Christmas is by far the most magical time to visit New York. You have the gigantic Rockefeller tree, endless Christmas markets, ice skating rinks dotted across the entire city, and all the stores and streets are decorated better than you could ever imagine. Anna and I took our parents and Anna's grandma on a Christmas trip, and it couldn't have been a better time. The first thing we did with them was visit the Rockefeller tree, and wow, was that entire area perfectly decorated. You have the classic trumpet players leading all the way up to the tree and ice skating rink, and right behind was this huge Dior decoration on 5th Avenue. It was just unbelievable. After watching the ice skaters for a little bit, we walked down 5th Avenue, and the decorations and window displays were all so unique. We even did a pedicab ride again in Central Park, and during this time of year, a lot of the pedicabs are decorated as well, which was such a vibe. Some other highlights during Christmas time was walking around by the Rockefeller Center where these gigantic ornaments and nutcrackers were, and then going to Bryant Park Christmas Market. Here there's a big ice skating rink and all sorts of small shops serving food and drinks. Of course, we had to get some hot chocolate, and even though it was a little expensive, it was some of the best hot chocolate we've had in our lives. Of course, once it's nighttime, make sure to walk around as much as possible and head back to the Rockefeller Center to see the tree and everything lit up at night. Other great things to do during Christmas time is see the Nutcracker show at the Lincoln Center, walking around Macy's looking at the window decorations, and even visit some of the most festive restaurants and bars, including Rolf's German Restaurant and Pete's Tavern. If you're local and have any other suggestions for Christmas in New York City, please leave a comment down below because I always want these videos to help other travelers just like you. What does suck about this time of year is the crowds and prices, but I have some tips to avoid that. Number 1, book far in advance. Number 2, try to visit during the weekdays even if it means taking off work. Trust me, it will be worth it. Tip number 3, I think the best time to visit is during the last couple days of November or the first couple days of December when the decorations in Rockefeller Tree are already up and the Christmas crowds aren't quite pouring in yet. Now let's move on to number 4, eating at Katz Deli. Visiting New York without eating the best pastrami sandwich in the city would be a huge mistake. Katz's Deli is located in the Lower East Side of Manhattan and has been serving classic Jewish deli food since 1888. The atmosphere inside is wild as you watch all the guys behind the counter cutting up meat and making gigantic sandwiches. We waited for around 45 minutes for 2 classic pastrami sandwiches that are served on rye with a spicy mustard and of course some pickles on the side. This sandwich was bigger than our heads and absolutely worth the wait and the money in my opinion. One sandwich comes in at a price of $26, which is pretty expensive, but you could easily share this between 2 people. I know a lot of people think Katz's Deli is overrated because of the long lines or the price, but I've talked to a lot of locals and they still think it has the best pastrami in New York City. But now let's move on to number 5, visiting the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island.
New York City is often called the world's biggest melting pot. That's because 36% of the city's population is born outside the US and come from more than 180 different countries, speaking over 700 different languages. New York City also has the largest Jewish population outside of Israel and the largest Chinese population outside of China. This massive diversity stems from the 12 million immigrants that came through Ellis Island between 1892 and 1954. I don't care what anyone says, you should definitely take a tour of the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island, and I recommend going on the first tour of the day at 9 a.m. to beat the crowds. If you want to go on the exact same tour as we did, you could scan the QR code on the screen right here. They are the best reviewed company in all of New York City. For this 4-hour tour, you'll meet down in Lower Manhattan, right near the financial district in a place called Battery Park. From this park, you have an amazing view of the One World Trade Center, and in the distance, you can see the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island. Right when we got onto Liberty Island, I immediately remembered learning in history class that the Statue of Liberty is made out of copper. That means way back when the statue was actually brownish, but because of rain and weather here, it changed and became the green it is today. What I found crazy is that our tour guide said you could still go all the way up inside the crown if you book it far in advance. From up there, it looks like it has the most insane views, and I would love to do this one day. I also thought it was awesome being able to look out from Liberty Island to see New Jersey on the left, Manhattan in the middle, and Brooklyn on the right. For those of you that don't know your history, the Statue of Liberty was actually gifted to the United States in 1884 by France as a symbol of their friendship and shared ideas of freedom and democracy. It was unveiled in 1886 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the United States independence and to celebrate the abolition of slavery in America. Fun fact, the framework and architecture of the statue was created by Gustave Eiffel, which is the same guy that created the iconic Eiffel Tower. After Liberty Island, you will take a short boat ride over to Ellis Island, and this is where more than 12 million immigrants made their way through to become US citizens. Something extraordinary you can do here is try to find your ancestors using the Ellis Island database. What's crazy is Anna actually ended up finding her great-grandfather that came through here, and it was so special to see the ship manifesto and more detailed info surrounding his journey through here. We got to visit the registry room here where thousands and thousands of people waited every single day to become citizens. It's actually very probable that if you're an American watching this video right now, your ancestors made their way through Ellis Island, because today, more than 40% or 100 million living Americans can trace their ancestors to Ellis Island.
Up next, we're moving on to number 6.
The Empire State Building.
Now, this is another spot in New York City that people say not to visit, especially because it can be crowded, but we say you should definitely visit, but you have to go at the right time. Weekends during summer will be hell, but if you go on a weekday around sunset time during the off-peak months, you will absolutely love the entire experience. The Empire State Building was built in 1931, and it was a marvel at the time because it was the first building in the world to ever hit over 100 floors. Innovation has moved fast, so nowadays there are more than 40 buildings that are taller than it, and the tallest building is the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. And if you're ever planning a trip to Dubai, Anna and I have made some amazing travel guides there, so make sure to check them out or press this link that pops up above. On your way up to the observation deck, you will pass by all sorts of exhibits showing how it was built, all the celebrities that have been here, and even a huge King Kong. Once you get up to the deck on the 86th floor, you have unbelievable 360-degree views of Manhattan and all the most iconic spots around the city. We recommend getting to the top 30 minutes before sunset because the view from up here is unbeatable, and then after the sun goes down, you even get to watch the city light up at night all around you. If you are visiting New York during a busy weekend or summer, we've heard the Edge is a great alternative and will probably have smaller crowds too. Up next, we're moving on to number 6, a helicopter ride over Manhattan.
There are so many different helicopter tours for everyone's budget, and these rides can span from 12 minutes all the way up to 45 minutes and can range from $250 per person to $500 per person depending on the tour. Because of the sponsor of this video, Get Your Guide, we had the unbelievable opportunity to take a private helicopter ride for 45 minutes all around Manhattan and basically saw every inch of the city during sunset. When I tell you this was one of the most breathtaking experiences of our lives, I really mean that with every ounce of my body. Because our helicopter ride was private, we had to meet in White Plains, which is around a 40-minute train ride from Grand Central Station. As we made our way towards Manhattan, we flew over the Bronx and saw the Yankee Stadium and had an amazing view of the East River and Hudson River surrounding the island. We couldn't have picked a better time to take a helicopter tour because the sun was setting over the horizon while we flew by so many iconic spots, including Central Park, Times Square, both the Brooklyn and Manhattan Bridge, and the One World Trade Center. We even got very close and glided around the Statue of Liberty a couple times. On our way back from the Statue of Liberty, we passed the Empire State Building, which was my favorite view. It just felt so iconic being high above the city at that moment. During the entire flight, our pilot was teaching us all about the city, and it was by far the best way to learn the layout of Manhattan. You can scan the QR code on the screen right now for the private helicopter option, but I'll make sure to link 2 different options down in the description below for cheaper budgets.
Cutting in real quick because this video wouldn't have been possible without our sponsor, Get Your Guide. Get Your Guide is the #1 place to book unforgettable travel experiences with more than 110,000 things to do in over 150 countries around the world. During our time in New York, we booked everything with the app, including the dinner cruise, the Statue of Liberty tour, and even skip the line tickets to the Empire State Building. Best part is you got everything on your phone, like the meeting location and QR code. And my favorite thing about Get Your Guide is being able to cancel your tour experience all the way up until 24 hours before it begins, and you get all your money back. Now, if this video helped you at all, the best way to support Anna and I is by clicking the links down in the description below to book your tours, or by scanning the QR codes that you see pop up in the videos, and we get a little kickback so that we can continue making videos just like this one. Now let's get back to the video. Woo!
Up next, we're moving on to number 8, going to a Broadway show.
Located in the heart of Manhattan, Broadway has more than 41 theaters and 37 shows currently playing, including classics like the Phantom of the Opera, Chicago, Hamilton, The Lion King, and my personal favorite, Wicked. To be honest, going to New York City without seeing a Broadway show is like visiting Paris without seeing the Eiffel Tower. You just have to do it. My wife Anna has been in New York City 10 times in her life and has seen 5 different shows on Broadway, including Rent, The Addams Family, Book of Mormon, and Wicked twice, and she loved all of them. The 2 times I have been in New York City, I saw Wicked twice, and it was just phenomenal. And if you only have time for one show, I do recommend seeing Wicked because wow, the singing, story, set, and the entire performance was just unbeatable. I'm guessing a lot of you already know what Wicked is about, especially because that movie just came out with Ariana Grande, but if you don't, it's the prequel to Wizard of Oz that shares the backstory of the Wicked Witch of the West. Now let's move on to number 9, eating at Carbone.
Considered the hardest restaurant to get a reservation to in New York City, Carbone is some of the best Italian food we've had in our lives. This place is very famous and so many celebrities have dined here, including Justin Bieber, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Rihanna, to name a few. The way we got in is by putting our name on a wait list using Resy, which is the reservation app, and randomly got notified one morning that we can go for lunch. If you really want to go here, make sure to go on Carbone's website 30 days before your preferred date and try to make a reservation when new spots open right at 10 a.m. Eastern. Right when we arrived, we couldn't believe how amazing the 1950s inspired decor was, especially the bartender making all sorts of classic drinks. Our waiter was the funniest New Yorker ever and really made the entire experience feel authentic. Some of the best dishes here include the famous spicy rigatoni, veal parmesan, Caesar salad made tableside, meatballs and marinara, and of course tiramisu. I actually think the spicy rigatoni was my least favorite thing we had, especially because the meat dishes here were just out of this world delicious. We ended up getting super drunk off tons of espresso martinis because the Sopranos were sitting in the booth next to us. Well, not really the Sopranos, but a group of 5 friends that looked like they were dropped straight out of a mobster movie. They were so fun to talk to and even let us try all sorts of dishes because I'm pretty sure they ordered everything off the menu. I want to say thank you to the mystery group for giving us the most New York experience and for paying our entire bill at the end of our lunch. Up next, we have number 10, the Friends Experience. If you're obsessed with the #1 sitcom in history, and personally my favorite, then you need to go for a quick 1-hour visit to the Friends Experience. This place blew every expectation I had out of the water, and I would do it all over again in a heartbeat. This 2-story interactive attraction immerses visitors in 18 nostalgia-packed rooms, featuring recreated sets like Monica and Rachel's apartment, Joey and Chandler's recliners, and even Central Perk. Fans can pose on the famous orange couch, help Ross pivot his couch up the stairs, and see original props and costumes, including the holiday armadillo suit and Hugsy. If you don't want to wait in a ticket line, you could scan this QR code right here on the screen, and the ticket costs around $55 per person. The whole time, I seriously felt like I was inside the show. The rooms were just perfectly designed. There's walls full of famous guest appearances, tons of different clothing. You can poke the ugly naked guy on the deck, and even grab pastries and a coffee at the full-size replica of Central Perk. Anna watched Friends her entire life, and I only just recently watched it all the way through when I was 25 years old, and this experience was truly special to both of us. Now let's move on to number 11, Times Square.
Times Square is known as the crossroads of the world and is visited by more than 50 million people every single year. It's home to endless billboards, world-famous theaters like Broadway, and an electrifying energy that really shows firsthand why New York is called the city that never sleeps. We came here and explored for a little after our Wicked Broadway show ended at 11 p.m. and it couldn't have been a better time. I actually think you should avoid Times Square during the daytime and only come at night because this is when the energy is at the highest and the billboards are shining so bright that you could see them all the way from space. You don't really have to spend too much time here, but walking around, watching the street performers, and being surrounded by all sides with massive billboards is what this place is all about. Up next, we have number 12, walking around Fifth Avenue.
New York City is definitely expensive to visit, but one of our favorite things to do is walk down Fifth Avenue, which is totally free, just like Central Park. You could visit so many iconic spots on this street within a 15-minute walk, including the Rockefeller Center, St. Patrick's Cathedral, and the Plaza Hotel. You'll even pass by the Metropolitan Museum of Art and the New York Public Library. By far, one of my favorite parts about this road is the mix between historical buildings and modern skyscrapers. My all-time favorite time to walk Fifth Avenue is during December because all the stores have their window displays up and the entire street is decorated perfectly. Just make sure to bring the comfiest walking shoes possible for your time in New York because you'll be walking a ton. Now up next, we have number 13, Prince Street Pizza.
Out of all the pizza slices we tried in New York, Prince Street Pizza was by far our favorite. Now, if I'm going to be honest, we haven't tried that many places, so if you're a local or just someone that loves pizza, please let us know your favorites down in the comments below because I'm guessing everyone wants to go try the best slice in New York. Prince Street is famous for its Sicilian slice, which is thick crust and rectangular. If you do go here, you have to try the spicy pepperoni. It was just out of this world. I also highly recommend going in person to pick up your pizza. It's right in the middle of Soho, and inside it's super cool. It's a tiny hole in the wall with no seating whatsoever, but it was so cool seeing all the celebrities on the wall that have been there and watching the guys behind the counter making the pizzas right in front of your eyes. Now up next we have number 14, Summit One Vanderbilt.
Towering high above Manhattan, the Summit One Vanderbilt is the newest observation deck in New York City, which just recently opened in 2021. The deck is near the top of the One Vanderbilt, which is the 4th tallest skyscraper in New York City, standing at 1,400 feet tall. If it's high season like summer and the lines are really long at the Empire State Building, I definitely think you should head to this observation deck. Not only do you have 360-degree views of the entire city, including amazing views of the Empire State Building and Central Park, you also get to walk around 3 different floors of art installations that will blow your mind. By far the coolest room, in my opinion, is called Air, which is this room filled with endless mirrors surrounding every part of the room. It creates this infinite kaleidoscope effect, making it feel like you are floating in the sky. It's definitely dreamy in here, but make sure to bring sunglasses during the day because they can get super bright from the sun. Also, I've heard the sunsets up here are unbeatable, so if you want to come up here during that time, make sure to book in advance because the Summit One experience is a timed entry ticket. You should definitely scan the QR code on the screen to book your ticket so you don't have to wait in ticket lines when you arrive. Now let's move on to number 15, visiting the 9/11 Memorial.
By far, the most impactful experience you could have in New York City is visiting the 9/11 Memorial. This memorial is a powerful tribute to the almost 3,000 people who lost their lives during the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001. The twin reflecting pools here, each nearly an acre in size, are set in the footprints of the original Twin Towers in Lower Manhattan. The names of every victim are inscribed on bronze panels surrounding the pools, offering a space for reflection and respect within the hustle and bustle of the city. If you have the chance, I would highly recommend visiting the museum right next door to the memorial. Sadly, Anna and I ran out of time, but I heard it's an emotional experience as you replay the day the world changed. Inside, you could see a 36-foot tall steel beam that was the final piece of debris removed from Ground Zero. You could also see damaged emergency vehicles, voice recordings and videos, and even parts of the 2 planes that crashed into the towers. This is not a tourist attraction, but rather a moment to reflect, remember, and connect with one of the most impactful parts of history that continues to shape the world more than 20 years later. Up next, let's move on to number 16, visiting the Met.
Founded all the way back in 1870, the Met is the largest art museum in the US and one of the most visited in the world. It has a massive collection of over 2 million works of art spanning 5,000 years. Be aware this museum is closed on Wednesdays, and on every other day, it's $30 per person to go inside. If you're not really into art, walking around the Met is worthwhile because the architecture is just so stunning here. Also, if you want amazing views of Central Park and Manhattan, a secret is to head to the rooftop garden where they serve drinks and snacks throughout the day. One of the most famous pieces of artwork we saw was George Washington crossing the Delaware during the American Revolution. It's important because this was George Washington's first major victory against the British and was a pivotal moment in gaining independence. Another famous piece of artwork nearby is Vincent van Gogh's self-portrait, which is a striking example of his use of colors and texture. By far, one of my favorite parts about walking around the Met is seeing these local painters and sculptors allowed to come in and practice their craft using these famous pieces of art. Up next, let's move on to number 17, the Rockefeller Center.
Earlier, we already talked about the iconic Christmas tree and ice skating rink, but the Rockefeller Center is so much more than that. The Rockefeller Center consists of 19 buildings spanning 22 acres in Midtown Manhattan. One of these buildings is the Radio City Music Hall, which is home to the world-famous Rockettes, who perform their high kick routines especially during the Christmas Spectacular. The Rockefeller Center is also home to the headquarters of NBC, which has so many famous shows like Saturday Night Live and Jimmy Fallon. If you want to go to either one of these shows, you can actually request standby tickets for the 8 p.m. dress rehearsal or the 11:30 p.m. live show, and if you're lucky, you'll get selected. During our family trip, our mom's favorite thing about the Rockefeller Center is seeing the Today Show live from right outside. And the last amazing thing to do at the Rockefeller Center is head up to yet another observation deck called the Top of the Rock that I've heard is up there with views that you get from the Empire State Building or the Edge. Now let's move on to number 18, the Brooklyn Bridge.
By far, one of the most legendary symbols of New York City is the Brooklyn Bridge. Whether you're sailing under it, on a dinner cruise, or walking over it, it's definitely something you should put on your list when you come here. This bridge was built way back in 1883 and was the very first bridge in the world to use steel wired cables. Also at that time, it was the longest suspension bridge in the world, measuring 486 meters or 1,595 feet long. Fun fact, the movie Greatest Showman is based on P.T. Barnum, and way back in 1884, he actually tested the bridge's strength by leading a parade of 21 elephants across the bridge. Walking over this bridge is breathtaking, and the views you get of Manhattan skyline are unbelievable. The Brooklyn Bridge has been in so many movies like I Am Legend, Sex and the City, John Wick, and Spider-Man. Once you take the 10-minute walk over the bridge, you can explore Brooklyn's trendy neighborhoods like Dumbo, Brooklyn Heights, and the Brooklyn Bridge Park. I know that Brooklyn is considered a part of New York City's population, but if it was separated, Brooklyn would be the 4th largest city based on population in the US. Now it's time to move on to number 19, walking along the High Line.
The High Line is probably the most unique public park in New York City, and I definitely recommend going. Originally built in 1934 as an elevated railroad track, it's now a 1.5-mile long park that passes through the Meatpacking District, Chelsea, Hudson Yards, and the Hell's Kitchen neighborhoods. As you walk along this path, you will pass by more than 500 plant species, art installations, and amazing architecture. Connected to the High Line is the Vessel, which is one of the most unique buildings I have ever seen in my life. It has this honeycomb design with 154 interconnecting flights of stairs. And exciting news about this is that it recently opened back up to the public after being closed since 2021 due to a number of suicides that happened here. There is a $10 entrance fee to visit, but I think if you're into architecture or photography, it's a quick must-do spot in New York City. Now, last but not least, let's move on to number 20, the Edge Observation Deck.
I've heard from a couple different people that the Edge Observation Deck is the best in New York City, beating out the Empire State Building, Top of the Rock, and the Summit One Vanderbilt. Sadly, I can't give my honest opinion because we haven't been up there yet, but we did see it from the helicopter ride and it looked epic. The Edge is the highest outdoor observation deck in the Western Hemisphere at 1,131 feet above ground. The Edge is open year-round and costs around $44 per person, and make sure to scan the QR code on the screen right here so you don't have to wait in ticket lines when you arrive.